episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, your go-to source for the latest in industry trends and strategies to help you level up your M&A practice. I am your host, Nick Olsen, Managing Director of Cornerstone International Alliance, a consortium of lower middle market M&A firms from across the globe. Here, we bring in masterminds who are experienced, knowledgeable, and gracious enough to share how they have succeeded in the world of M&A. My guest, everything I just said fits that bill. I'm really excited. He is a go-to resource in the M&A world, I would consider. He founded Private Equity Info in 2005, really focused on creating tools that he wished he had when he was an investment banker. Private Equity Info is a tool that a lot of our partners at Cornerstone International Alliance utilize and love, by the way, myself being one of them. Their database has over 28,000 firms, 180,000 executives, 1 million companies, and 33,000 funds. This platform is very user-friendly and uses the latest technologies to help us all do our jobs better. Please welcome my guest today, owner and founder of Private Equity Info, Andy Jones. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Nick.
My pleasure. I'm excited you are willing to be here with us today, and I think this is going to be a great conversation. Like I mentioned in the introduction, I love your platform. I use it, and I think it's got a lot of great features and technologies that any M&A advisor could benefit from. But
Thank you.
Let's start out by just tell us a little bit about yourself. I mentioned you started investment banking. You realized the problem and you solved the problem by founding Private Equity Info. So why don't you dive a little bit into that for us?
Well, we're continually solving the problem, right? There's always more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Good to clarify.
Originally I started out as an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and then I did my master's in acoustics before moving into investment banking, originally with Bear Stearns in the London office doing bulge bracket transactions. And then I did some middle market transactions here in Texas. We're in Austin, Texas. And then I founded Private Equity Info 2005, as you mentioned, and it really was the tool I wish I'd had.
Awesome. So I know one thing, and like I said, I'm a user of it. A lot of our members are users of it. But what would you say, separates you guys from any, similar, maybe ancillary type of database? I know I would say your data accuracy and integrity is probably at the top and something you guys focus on regularly, correct?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Story time. So I come from the world of investment banking, right? And in bulge bracket investment banking, at least, it's got this culture of mistakes are unforgivable, right? And so I remember one day I came into the office one morning, and on my chair, there were 7 or 8 pages from a pitch book. And it was all the same page. They were sitting on my chair. And in red ink, the bottom right corner, the page number was circled on every page. I was like, what is this? And, I recognized the page. It was a pitch that I'd been working on. My vice president, said, look, right as we were going into the client meeting, we noticed the page number was wrong. So rather than present a mistake to the client, they ripped that page out of the page book. This is back when we were printing, pitches, and ripped it out, and he left it on my chair, for me to see in the morning. You know how you do a pitch and the last minute you're shuffling some pages and whatnot, and that happened. So I understand the culture, and I understand the importance of accuracy of information, and that's kind of the background I'm coming from, and that's why we are just absolutely fanatical about our data quality. In terms of like the secret sauce, people ask that all the time. What is the secret sauce to keeping the data accurate and timely and up to date? Basically, we've built really good technology systems, processes. We have a really great team in place that just does the grind. It's a grind. And it's just the focus on attention to detail. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. So, and I would attest that your data is rock solid, and it's been great. The last thing you want is, when you're doing a pitch to a potential buyer and, you get bounce backs or you get the wrong person. Whatever. Talk about, getting, you guys have created a functionality that, gets you in front of, gets you in front of the right private equity firm, but also the right person at that private equity firm. Talk
Right.
about that, what that functionality is, because I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Actually, let me maybe take a step back and talk a little more broadly, and then I'll narrow into that.
Sure.
There's kind of three, if I think about it, M&A advisors, there's three use cases really for when people ping our database. The first is you have a potential pitch coming up, or you have a pitch coming up to a potential client, and you're looking to get smart quickly, see who the players are in that space, who are the active investors in that industry. And so they'll use our service to do some quick searches, get ready for their pitches. The second case would be, okay, you've got the engagement. Now you're putting together your full-blown marketing plan for a particular client. Then you're going to be really digging deep into our database for that. And the third case is identifying potential new clients through our private company database. But in terms of how do you use it for, let's say, the second case, really building out your marketing plan. When I was working as an investment banker, I would really think about my marketing plan in three lists, right? The A list, the B list, the C list, right? And the A list are those super targeted rifle shot hits where this particular, say, private equity firm is definitely going to have an interest in taking a look at this deal. And, I'm sure you're aware of this, but the single biggest indicator that a PE firm would have an interest in your client's company is that they've already made a very similar investment, right? So the ability to keyword search or filter by industry, the portfolio companies that the private equity firms own is real key to finding your A-list targets. And this feature that you mentioned at the start here is, how do you find the exact right person to contact? Well, for each portfolio company, we've assigned the person at the private equity firm who has the board seat to that portfolio company. We've heard this a lot, and I'm sure you've experienced it too. It seems like if you reach out to the wrong person at the right firm, you typically get no answer. Have you experienced that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so it's super critical to be able to talk to the right person, and the right person would be, well, who has the board seat to the company that's most interesting to you? And they're going to have an interest in looking at your deal. So the right person, the right time, the right firm, I put that together. So that's what that feature is. And of course, let me just continue on. The B list would be, well, maybe they don't have an investment in that space already, but they have a stated interest in the industry, and it fits the right geography, the right size criteria, and whatnot. And then the C list is, well, you hope you don't need a C list. That means you have a hard deal, right? So that's the catch-all. But yeah, that's generally how people use our service, and that's how they connect with the right firms and the right people at the right firms.
And that's it just saves time. And as we know in this industry, time can kill all deal. Time kills all deals, right? And
right.
we can be more
effect.
Yeah, right. And so if we can hit right on the first time, I think that's absolutely important and vital. But with this, as you guys have built out this amazing platform, um, you've talked with a lot of M&A professionals, a lot of private equity firms. Um, what are some things that you and your team? We're talking. I mean, maybe it relates to your data integrity, but also relationship building and finding these great people to connect with. How do you and your team leverage those conversations that you guys have with all these people in the M&A industry to not only help you guys out and your platform, but also help out others that utilize your platform?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of themes here. It's a very broad question. Let me see if I can narrow it down. I had a whole bunch of thoughts, and they collided at the same time in my head.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting for us is that we talk to a lot of firms day in, day out, right? Firms like yours and similar, both private equity and investment banking. And typically, if you're working at, we'll say, a middle market investment bank, you know what your firm's doing, and you know what you're experiencing in the marketplace.
Yep.
And you probably know what a couple of other firms are doing because you talk to some people, and maybe a little more broadly, you see people at a conference and you share some stories and how are things going. But we sort of have a view of the landscape of across a lot of different firms, and I think we have a really good pulse of what's actually going on across the M&A landscape because of that. And so we often ask people when we're talking to them, like, how's deal flow?
Yep.
It's a really interesting question to see, to sort of gauge what's happening across the spectrum of firms. In M&A, activity, we'll say, it ebbs and flows. It's largely influenced by macroeconomic events, what the Fed's doing, demographic changes in the population, like baby boomers, for example, retiring. So we have a really good pulse on what's happening in terms of across a large swath of firms out there. And we use those conversations to, spread the word amongst the other firms we talk to and what's the pulse, and also to inform us as to, how we might develop new features and tools in our product.
Talk about just the pulse of the M&A space right now. Talk more recently, maybe, and look back in the past year, and maybe look going forward. But what have you heard in these conversations you've had? What are some common pain points that investment banks are having right now in the state of this economy?
Yeah, I guess right now the pain points are the same they always are, right? What is the number one and number two things that we're just talking founder to founder kind of conversations, right? And
Yep.
How's deal flow going? What are you guys thinking about right now? What are you experiencing in the marketplace? It's always the top two things are access to quality deal flow, right?
Yep.
And smoothing the cash flow cycle at an investment bank because it's quite lumpy.
Yep. Right.
So if we talk about those two in particular, so quality deal flow is always top of mind. It is the lifeblood of an investment bank, right? So I guess that brings up the question, what do you mean by quality deal flow? Like how do we generate more deal volume and then ensure that those deals that we're working on are higher quality? And what is a high quality deal? Well, it's all the things that is client whose company has the attributes that increase the probability of closing, right? So they've got, good margins, stable cash flows, it's predictable cash flows, no customer concentrations. The seller has some sort of motivation to close, those sort of things. So how do you get higher quality deal flow? I put a lot of thought into this, and I'm curious what your thinking is. I kind of view it as the firms that are the most successful are playing the long game, right? And in order to play the long game, well, let me phrase it this way. If you were to think back over the last, say, 10 years of deals you guys have done as a firm, and you say, well, pick your top 3 deals. And by top, I mean they closed, they were lucrative, and they were easy to work with the seller or the capital raise, whatever the case may be. I would wager that most investment bankers that I would frame that question to, if you pick your top 3, where did that deal come from? It'll almost always be from a referral, a personal relationship, not from some just general purpose marketing, Google ads, the casting of a wide net. It's almost always starts with relationships where all the best deals come from, the highest quality deals.
Right.
And if that's the case, and it generally is, would you say that would probably be the case for you guys?
I would completely agree with you there. Yes.
Yeah. So then, I think that resonates with most bankers that I talk to. So then the question isn't, how do we do more marketing to get more deals? The question more fundamentally is, how do we build relationships today that result in higher quality deals tomorrow?
Right.
Right. And I guess, M&A is a very transactional business, but it's a very relationship-based practice. And I think everyone who is in this space understands that. And I guess there's really no substitute for time and relationships, right? So I think really, if you think about like where are you allocating your time and your professional relationships and your networking and taking people to lunches and that sort of thing today, I think that defines your long-term deal flow, quantity and quality.
Yeah. We got together recently as an alliance this past fall, and that was the topic. The topic, like you hit on, is deal flow. What are strategies you're using to market it? What
Yep.
business development tactics are you doing to get more clients in? And I saw, just sitting in the room, I saw, as we're talking about this, one of our partners that's, said, we really focus on a certain amount of key referral sources. We dedicate our time to that. And I'm like, a couple of aha moments, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But because you can spend a ton of time doing marketing, and marketing is important. You got to get your brand out there. You got to let people know about you. Things like that. That's important. You can't completely forget about that, right? You still have to do some of that. But if you're
Right.
talking about direct business development, bringing in clients, um, you hit the nail on the head. It's referral sources, and developing those relationships. It's going to take time, right? Like you said, it's going to take time. You got to nurture them. How are you, like the conversation I went to? How are you nurturing those relationships? How many touch points are you having? Because you could have a huge list of referral sources, or maybe you want a narrow list of 10 that you just really, really focus on and have more touch points
Mhm.
regularly than these 200 referral sources that you reach out to twice a year, because that's not really relationship building. And like you mentioned, this is a relationship building industry. And so, what I've learned, just talking with our own group and our experiences is, focus on those referral sources, like you said, but maybe narrow it to a group that is, consolidated enough where you have the time to really develop those relationships and, maybe you even become friends, who knows? And you're
Yeah,
going to
it
go
happens.
on trips together with your families and whatever. Like that's the kind of level I think that you want to get to be able to, anytime that person comes across an opportunity, they're going to send it to you, undoubtedly. And I
Yeah,
think
one of the
narrow that group
underutilized.
and focus on more touch points is what I would say is what I've heard in my experience.
Yeah, I would say one of the most underutilized marketing efforts at an investment bank are the successful deals you've closed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you've done a great job on a deal, um, hopefully some word of mouth happens for you, and
Yep.
momentum begets momentum.
Yes.
Yeah. The
One
other.
thing, Andy, before we go on to the next one, sorry to cut you off there. One thing I would add to that too is don't feel um, bad about or asking your former clients to also help. Like, hey, if you had a great experience with us helping sell your company, tell your friends. Like, don't be afraid to have that conversation, because they might not think about that, but as if you kind of plant that seed. Okay, I have a couple of friends who are business owners. I'll let them know about what I experienced, and hopefully down the road you'll get your clients' friends business as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to talk about the second one is smoothing the cash flow cycles, or if you want to move on
Yeah, let's hit it. Let's go. Yeah, absolutely. Dive in.
and talk about. Well, as we all know, if you're an M&A professional, the cash flow is lumpy. Even when I was working at Bear Stearns in the industrials slash chemicals group, that's a big bulge bracket firm, and you would think that the cash flow would smooth out, and it's not something that people would worry about. But it happens the same there. What happens is your team starts marketing, and lo and behold, it results in a deal or two or three, and then you're all in, burning the midnight oil, working on deals, and you're not doing any
Mm-hmm.
marketing, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just grinding, and you close the deals, and you're like, oh no, we don't have anything to work on. This guy is falling. This guy is falling. And you start marketing, and it's just this entrepreneurial roller coaster. And I know all firms go through it. Even the bulge bracket firms, by each industry
Yeah.
group, kind of goes through that cycle, and that's very normal. And especially if you talk about middle market or lower middle market firms, there's a big difference in the outcome for your year if you close one, two, three, or four deals or zero,
Right.
right? It's such a huge difference because the outcomes are so binary. And so that's the second thing people talk to me about is, oftentimes firms hold tremendous amounts of reserve cash because you just never know if the next deal is going to close or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys are the same way. Um, there are some things that I think could be done, and some firms are doing things like this. For example, better retainers for your deals and your deal structure. some firms are offering consulting practices, which is a lead gen for eventual deals. Probably the single biggest one is just engage really good clients and say no to some that aren't. Sometimes when you have a season where a deal flow is slow, you're inclined to take that lesser quality deal, maybe we'll say, and that can burn a lot of your time for maybe no outcome. Other firms are hiring like a dedicated business development executive to help smooth, so you don't have the people doing the deal, marketing deal, and go through that cycle. You have someone continually focused on bringing in a steady flow of new deals. Other firms are adding valuation practices.
Yep.
As a lead gen, it's just something that's constantly dripping in potential new deal flow, and also some revenue and cash flow to keep the lights on kind of money. Mm-hmm. Other firms are outsourcing analyst work so that you can free up your time to both do a deal and market at the same time. Just some ideas for people out there who are thinking like, man, the cash flow can be great in some years, but it's so lumpy.
Yeah. The theme of that, you're just and the things that you'd mentioned are really great. But, the theme that I see there too, as an M&A advisor and as an investment banker, if you can focus on the deals and you have other people working around you to support that, like then you can have, that can be, the cash flow can be less lumpy, can be flatter, and you can turn around more deals. We recently did a study about where an M&A advisor should, spend his or her time. And yeah, it's not on the marketing. It's not on necessarily the business development. Obviously, I'd say formal business development. Obviously, we want you to continue to work on nurturing those referral sources and relationships. But if you can focus on, your clients, getting the deal done, and building that trust and rapport that you have, so your clients will, obviously it'd be easier to work with having that trust and rapport, but hopefully the deal goes smoother. But if you can have, and this isn't always the case because we have a lot of small firms too that are, 1, 2, 3 person shops. It's not always the case, but if you can do that in a perfect world where you can have people around an advisor to support them, I think, what do you think, Anna? Is that something that would help that out?
Well, look, in an ideal world, it's about how can you best allocate your resources, which is your time. In an ideal world, you would allocate all your time to your highest value contributions, which is working with the client directly, and doing the highest level strategic M&A kind of work. But let's face it, there's just a lot of other things that, especially at a small firm where you wear a lot of hats and you just right. got to spin a lot of plates. And that is the conundrum, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. So what are some, common mistakes you're seeing bankers make right now that might impact, deal closings or, new opportunities or maybe deals getting done?
I don't know if I'm answering this question exactly the way you framed it, but one of the biggest mistakes I think people, M&A advisors make is that they don't work on larger deals. Mm-hmm. And I know it's easy to say. It's sometimes harder to get larger deals, and to get a larger deal, you have to have experience doing larger deals. But, I would say work your way up to do larger deals. I mean, the workload to close a deal does not scale with deal size.
Yeah, right.
As long as you're in the middle market, right? So at the lower end of the middle market, I would say the effort required to close a deal is often inversely proportional to the deal size. I mean, smaller deals sometimes are just more difficult.
Right. More work for less payoff.
Yeah.
What are some, speaking of, doing bigger deals, like I said, it can be challenging. In your experience and your conversation you had, what are you seeing? What are some things that might prohibit an advisor to be able to do bigger deals?
I think you got to scale up to doing bigger deals. It's not like you can take this huge step function, although sometimes that does happen if you have a good relationship with someone, with a client. Doing bigger deals is a matter of taking on slightly larger deals continuously, such that you eventually are doing just bigger deals. and perhaps saying no to some of the more difficult, smaller deals so that you free up your time to do bigger ones. I mean, you certainly have to have a resume of having done a 50, 100 million, $200 million deal to probably pitch that to a new client. But let's say you're working on a $30 million deal. It's not a big swing to say, well, 40,
Right.
40 to 50, and just kind of generally push your way up.
Which is probably organically how it normally happens, right?
Yeah. And I think people will find that they're easier to do. You have more professional management in place. It's maybe a less emotional tie to the business. At the smallest end of the deals, it's an owner founder and it's his baby. It's a very emotional deal.
Right. Andy, I've heard you say a couple of times, say no to deals. Say no to maybe the smaller deals, the more hairy deals. That sounds easy in theory, but I'm sure you're seeing that's not always the case with the people you talk to. Would you agree with that?
I mean, the allure of revenue is always there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is an opportunity cost for every deal you accept to take on, and as we all know, there are a lot of hours that go into even just formulating, your presentation material, putting together your marketing plan, putting together information memorandums and executive summaries and non-disclosure agreements, and managing just the initial part of the process. I mean, it's a huge undertaking before you even start a deal. But yeah, I get your point. It's hard to say no to something that could be. It's easy to talk yourself into taking on a client if times are slow, especially.
Harder to talk yourself out of taking on a not so great client because you said revenue.
Yeah, but I mean, you just have to consider there's an opportunity cost for taking them on.
Right, exactly. That's the advice right there. You hit it right. You're right on the head there. I mean, the last 4 years have been pretty unique, right, with COVID and all that sort of stuff. Are you seeing, do we have enough information? Are you seeing any new norms, right now in M&A?
Yeah, there's never a norm that lasts very long, it seems, right? It's sort of where have we been and where we kind of feel like we're at and where does it maybe feel like we're going? But it's always changing in flux. I would say, kind of recapping recent past, Q1 of 2023 was pretty good, what felt like normal deal flow activity. But then Q2 and Q3 of last year, 2023, happened, and it just fell off a cliff. It's like someone just flipped a light switch. Did you guys experience the same thing, Q2, summer?
Yes. Yeah, deals are paused or pushed, taken longer.
You and everybody else. And it's not just M&A. It wasn't just the investment banks. It wasn't just private equity. It was all their customers. It was everyone in industry. It's like something happened in the summer and everyone just quit. And I have some theories for that, maybe 3 things that come to mind. Well, there was an increase in interest rates, right? So there's a recalibration of business valuations because of the debt load. 2 is there was a lot of talk last summer of the oncoming recession. If you recall, everyone was talking about recessions coming. Hadn't happened yet. And then 3 is, I think that was the first summer in a while where people said, you know what, screw it. COVID's over. We're taking a real proper family vacation. I mean, I bet you did too. And people just disappeared for a while. Just kind of like, let's just take a vacation because we've all been holed up here for a few summers. So you put all those things together, deal flow dropped off completely in Q2 and part of Q3. Q4 started picking back up. Starting to see some activity. And I think that was, take some time to digest sort of revaluations, expectations of the sellers, right? Interest rates went up, maybe valuations have to come down. Some deals that were in the pipeline might get renegotiated a bit. Q1 this year, deal flow seems to be garnering quite a bit of momentum. anytime you have a pause, you're kind of stuffing the pipeline. And I think we're starting to
Right.
see deal flow pick up, at least to the people we're talking to. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, and I would add on that too. Why another reason why Q1's probably a little stronger too is those deals just got delayed. Q3, Q4, 23, which doesn't help your 23 numbers, but it'll be a good start to 24. But then you're also looking at what does that pipeline look like? So hopefully the pause in Q2, 3 has, like you said, filled the pipeline, and now you have some new opportunities that didn't make sense last year, but are going to come to market here in the first part of 24.
yeah, I mean, if you look at the private equity side of the equation, the buy side, 2023 they were very cautious. If you look at the ratio of add-on investments to platform investments, it went up considerably. So they were still deploying capital, but in bite-sized pieces.
So more on the
So
add-ons
a
than the
lot
platforms.
fewer platform acquisitions, and so we saw the slowdown this summer. We saw it even in our business. We saw it in the search activity on the database, just the engagement of customers, and just ancillary conversations. But it's picking back up. There's a bulge in the pipeline. It does come out. People eventually do sell their companies because eventually they want to retire or worse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. We got a lot. Well, and there's probably a lot of, like I said, the pipeline hopefully is full, but these opportunities are coming. So where are those opportunities happening? What are some hot industries we're looking at right now? And from what you guys have seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange. Like there are certain seasons where certain industries are hot, and I don't know why that is. I think a lot of the PE firms act in concert on specific industry theses. Back some years ago, it was like we had this focus on dental office roll-ups, and then in recent years, it's been HVAC and fire protection services. And basically, these industries are just super fragmented and very geographically focused. And so tons of HVAC deals in the last 2-3 years and fire protection services. It just kind of goes in waves. I'm not really sure exactly why that is, but outside of industry roll-ups, the hot sector is really, in the last 12, 18 months, has really been software and healthcare, primarily because those are high margin businesses, and with software in particular, you get the recurring revenue, and they're low capex.
What about on the flip side? What are some industries that aren't doing so well, or maybe us as investment bankers wanna be cautious on?
There's one industry in particular, and it's construction. That's always a challenge. I don't know if you've
Right.
done a construction deal or considered it. Here's a story for you. When we would speak at conferences in the past, I used to think it would be fun to just work on a live project from the audience. And I would ask, hey, anyone got a deal? We can just work through it live instead of just doing a canned example of how to use our database. And inevitably, the hands would go up. I'd just pick someone at random, like they're working on some construction deal, right? Well, the reason why they're bringing that up is because they're not having a lot of success with it. And they're like, hey, I'm going to phone a friend here, try to get a lifeline, because construction deals are hard. It just particular for private equity investors, they're hard to close because they're very capital intensive. They tend to be very regionally relationship based, right? Who the owner knows for 30 years. And further, the strategic buyers for construction companies often aren't buyers, because they would say to themselves, they always have this A/B comparison, and that is, do I acquire or do I just build it? Which, like, well, I could either spend all this money to acquire my competitor, or I could just outbid them or underbid them, we'll say, for the job. So I can just take their business through bidding. It's cheaper,
You're right. Yep.
So construction deals those are tough ones. It's hard to find buyers for those deals. Now, if you have a product, you build trusses and frames for construction, that's different. Or if you have software or services for the construction industry, that's different. But if you're general contractor, kind of heavy equipment construction, that's tough.
Anything else that you can think of that maybe we haven't hit on that it would be relevant for our audience to know just about current state M&A, what we can look for, in 2024? Anything else that we haven't hit on?
Nothing comes to mind. You might have exhausted all my brain cells.
I guess that's a good podcast
That's all I got.
Well, Andy, I really appreciate your insight and your time today. I thought this was amazing. You gave a lot of really good nuggets in there that I think people it will resonate with them, and hopefully they can take that and improve on their own ways of doing and attacking this year. But if our listeners want to know more about you or Private Equity Info, or maybe they want to learn more about the platform and how it can help them, where can we send our listeners to go find out more information?
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll drop a link to us at privateequityinfo.com. If you're listening to this podcast, I'll speak to you directly. I'd be happy to set up a free trial if you want to just reach out to me or someone on my team here, or even schedule a demo with us where we can go through a working session where you're not going to give us a construction deal. And we'll just work through some deal that you're going through just so you can see how the platform works and how the ease of use of our platform and the quality of our data can lead you to find buyers for your clients more efficiently.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that free offer from Andy and his team. I think it'll be eye-opening, and it'll improve your processes, give you some efficiencies in getting in front of the right buyer for your deals. So Andy, thank you for that. Thank you for that offer. Thank you for joining me today. That is all we have for today's episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. Help Andy and myself out. Share, comment, like, pass on this conversation to anybody who you think might benefit from it. And be sure to check out all of our episodes at cornerstoneia.com/podcast. Until next time, thank you all for listening. Take care.